Assassin's Creed is a series that I have followed and been neck deep in since before the original launched in 2007. Coming off the back of the excellent Prince of Persia Sands of Time trilogy, Ubisoft created Assassin's Creed out of the research that they were doing for a new Prince of Persia series. And as such, I was interested during development and before this first, now infamous trailer launched. Fast forward 15 years though, and the series is unrecognisable from those early 2000s roots. The series has ballooned in popularity and scope, but it has also shifted drastically in tone, design and gameplay, from a mystery science fiction stealth game to monstrous action-adventure, supernatural, overly monetised RPGs. Fans like myself, who have been embroiled in the series' story and lore for 15 years, have been rather disappointed with the state of the series since around 2015. While we can all find positives here and there in every release, for the most part, Assassin's Creed has either become a rank disappointment to the long-time fans that built the series, or it has stepped too far and died within their eyes. So Ubisoft have decided to try something a little different. Within a Ubisoft Forward from September 2022, they announced no less than 6 new Assassin's Creed properties, covering different platforms, narratives and aspects of the fan bases. So welcome everybody. My name is Doragon, and these are my thoughts on the future of Assassin's Creed, and whether it looks bright or bleak. Assassin's Creed Mirage. Mirage is the first of the new announcements that will be releasing, as I understand it. Slated for 2023, Mirage is the next core game within the series, with an obvious focus of the core fans of the franchise. Set within Baghdad in the 900s, we will play as the semi-antagonist from Valhalla, Basim, an orphan taken in and trained by the Hidden Ones to work in the dark to serve the light, against the order of the Ancients. The footage supplied thus far, while only CG in nature, displays much of the series' stalwart and much clamoured for aspects, including stealth, parkour, and adherence to the Creed's tenets, which have been ignored and absent from the series since Syndicate in 2015. Now there are direct parallels to draw, maybe hear that as reskins, from the earlier game trailers in the series to Mirage's recent trailer. From Basim jumping off a roof and assassinating someone in the same manner that Ezio did in the Assassin's Creed 2 trailer, to the parkour and city vista shots eliciting feelings of Assassin's Creed 1. Ubisoft want to elicit the nostalgia of the long-time fan with Mirage in 2023. So how are they doing? I'm one of those disenfranchised fans after all. Well, I'm not sold. You see, Mirage was built on the same engine as Valhalla, Odyssey and Origins, which was creaking at the seams in the 2017 release, and outright broke regularly in the 2020 release on next-gen systems. That engine was built with RPG combat in mind. There has been no parkour or stealth as Assassin's Creed fans know it within the Ancient Trilogy, because the engine simply cannot handle it. To then announce a release on that 8 or 9-year-old engine that will have not been fit for purpose for 3 years by the time Mirage releases doesn't fill me with confidence that Mirage will be a mechanically sound and bug-free game. If they have managed to somehow make the engine work for these older mechanic stylings, I'm not currently convinced that the smoothness and player autonomy that we knew from the Desmond saga will be replicated in Assassin's Creed Mirage. This concern is compounded with the studio mentioning that parkour is heavily influenced by and based upon Assassin's Creed Unity, the worst game from a mechanics, stability and bug standpoint in the entire series. You see, everything was animation based in Unity. Everything. Combat, parkour, assassinations, the whole shebang. This means that as a player, although you may have the skill and foresight to see a situation that you need to react to, Because what you are currently doing is a locked animation, that animation must complete before you can then react to the situation that you foresaw. This can mean that combat encounters suddenly result in desynchronization, because the game won't let you counter what's coming. The game and engine are partway through an animation that it won't or can't cancel, so you cannot react to the incoming danger and survive, no matter how good your perception of the situation is. That is then true for everything else that is animation based, including parkour. All of this means that the beautiful, free-flowing gameplay that we know from the Desmond saga that grants ultimate player autonomy won't be available in Assassin's Creed Mirage, because its gameplay engine and design are all based on animations. This means that older fans such as myself will still therefore be disappointed. But by another token, we've seen no gameplay yet. Ubisoft only showed off a CG trailer for the game. This CG trailer. We also know the platforms that it will release on, including 3 years into a new generation of console, the base level PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. These are 1080p 30 FPS devices, with limits on size, fidelity, loading, and assets. So we have no idea what gameplay looks like or how it flows. But we do know that it will launch on 10-year-old grossly underpowered hardware that will affect the final design and build of the game. I am hoping that I am very nicely shocked when we do see gameplay or get a demo. It does, however, worry me that the game is releasing next year and we have zero footage of it in action thus far. When you consider that we do have gameplay footage of the just announced Rise of the Ronin from Team Ninja, which isn't due for release until 2024, to not have footage of a game releasing anywhere up to 23 months prior to that is concerning for Mirage. So the realist in me says look at the mismanagement of the franchise over the past decade. Look at the recent overly monetized tick box exercise releases in the series. Be aware that we have no gameplay this close to release, and be ready for further disappointment. However, all of the talk surrounding this game, all of the changes from Valhalla, every reference to previous superior titles in the series, they speak to me. They elicit a feeling of hope, a feeling that has been dashed all too often in recent games in the series, to a point that I thought those feelings had died. But apparently, there is still hope. Mostly though, I feel it should be a case of wait and see. Make them win me back, rather than give them an easy opportunity to further disappoint me.
Assassin's Creed. Codename Hex.
Okay, we're into speculation territory now. Pretty much every other announcement from the Ubisoft Forward has a stinger video, title card, and project name, with very little detail there afterwards. So there is very little to go on for many of them. Hex, however, well, that has clues within that teaser trailer and title card. Fans have been busy translating the Mogi alphabet text within the stinger to form sentences and extrapolate possible settings. The Mogi alphabet, for those unaware, is a version of Hebrew, invented by Paracelsus in the 16th century. Thankfully, this means it is recorded well in resources like Omniglot, a website dedicated to language and writing systems, and can therefore be easily translated. The translation of the text within the teaser and title card actually comes out in German. The German, and please excuse my enunciation here, is Wir arbeiten in dem Dunkel und dem Licht zu dienen, which, when then translated into English, gives us the core tenet of the creed that I'll let Niccolo Machiavelli here tell you.
We work in the dark to serve the light. We are assassins.
By following this same translation pattern, additional words can be found in the teaser and title card. Words such as house, rush, and Mephisto. are all found. Which, once again, when translated into English, gives you house, revenge, and Mephisto. If you also translate the codename of Hex from German to English, you get the word witch. These clues would point to a 16th century game set within Germany during its witch hunts. During this period, it is said in folklore that Mephisto struck a deal with Johann Georg Faust. From an Assassin's Creed perspective, Mephisto could be one of the Isu that we encounter within the game, either as a witch, or in the mythological sections similar to those we experienced with Odin in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Of course, this is all speculation. None of this has been confirmed by Ubisoft, but the clues that they left for the fans to find point to a German assassin during the 16th century witch hunts who encounters Mephisto. I like this community-based discovery. It feels quite rewarding going digging for answers and possibly getting them. This does, as a long-time fan of the series though, worry me. One of my main concerns and dislikes of Odyssey and Valhalla was the overly heavy mythological and supernatural story elements, including massive chunks of post-launch DLC. There are rules that Ubisoft provided to the world on how to make an Assassin's Creed game. One of those rules is nothing is magical. Everything has a plausible technological explanation, which has been grossly ignored in the last two releases. Hex being set during the European witch hunts offers itself up to further undermine that rule of what makes an Assassin's Creed game. I would love to be proven wrong, but due to Ubisoft's track record, I unfortunately have very little faith in them, and see this game not being very core to the Assassin's Creed experience in terms of lore, gameplay, and adhering to the 10 rules that dictate what is an Assassin's Creed title. But this is all speculation. All we have is a teaser video with moggy letters within it, translations of 13 words, and a lot of jumping to possible conclusions. Like, we don't even have a real name for this release. Just a code name. There's no gameplay, no release window, no platform confirmation, just a name and a whole heap of conjecture. What we do have though, is concerning to this particular long-time fan.
Assassin's Creed. Codename Red.
This is probably the game that I'm most disappointed with, despite having basically zero information about it. There are many reasons, but possibly the most pressing is news that developers assigned to working on the project do not want to do it because of the abusive behaviour of the creative director, Jonathan Dumont. Now, anyone who knows anything about Dumont or abuse allegations knows that you do not get this amount of smoke without a fire. The man uses his position of power to intimidate new developers and women and make constant unwanted sexual remarks and advances. But he's also physically violent, throwing objects across the office, punching walls, cornering staff to then add verbal abuse and slurs to the tirade. He's misogynistic, homophobic, and defends himself with comments like, "Oh, my mother was a lesbian, I know what I'm talking about." The guy is unhinged. Like, how is this man in charge of one of the biggest future Assassin's Creed releases with multiple different investigations, all coming to the same conclusion that he creates a toxic and unsafe work environment? An unsafe work environment. No one should feel unsafe at work, let alone forced into a situation with an individual that makes them feel more unsafe. Now, the original allegations came out in 2020, and they have continued to this day, with one member of the employee union group A Better Ubisoft going on record anonymously, to protect themselves of course, just after Red's announcement, saying that the huge turnover of staff under Dumont is directly because of his abusive behaviour, that Ubisoft haven't addressed, instead moving him to be creative director of Red to protect him and reward his behaviour. Explain to me how you get multiple years of HR complaints ranging from sex-based discrimination to violence, ultra-high staff turnover and underperforming releases as a creative director, and somehow basically get a promotion. This guy being in charge you can guarantee more innocent people will get abused, and the end product will still then be piss poor. If you want to look at it from just a game perspective, Demont was also in charge of the worst game ever released in my view. And I mean the worst game ever in the history of all games. Assassin's Creed Odyssey. You can check out my 2021 review of that game, linked in the description below, for more in-depth details on why it is so bad for me. But that puts a track record of failure up as the building blocks of Codename Red. Now Red will be an RPG based in feudal Japan where you take on the role of a shinobi. Now Assassin's Creed has always prided itself on historical accuracy. Even in the worst games in the series, that has always been a huge positive that you can take from it. Shinobi is the correct terminology when relating to Japanese stealth fighters. Ninja wasn't actually used until the 20th century, and it's actually a Chinese word. Shinobi operated in stealth, intelligence gathering, and hiding in plain sight. They used poisons, bows, bombs, and operated in an assassin manner. No black masks or anything here, just standard civilian attire or Ronin attire for these guys. Now I expect that the writing team are using the shinobi history to form the basis of the Japanese Brotherhood, and I'd be interested to see how that pans out if it is the case. If they are using that history, it'd place this tale in a similar time period to Hex, as shinobi only existed for the 15th, 16th and 17th centuries. But let's not forget that 10 years ago, we were told that Assassin's Creed would never go to feudal Japan, as the location does not lend itself to the Assassin's Creed core gameplay and experience. To then offer a feudal Japan game 10 years later as an RPG and not a back to roots type game feels like a nostalgic cash grab from Ubisoft. But Codename Red faces a much bigger problem when it comes to a Japanese-based assassin-style game. That problem is Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost launched in 2020 on the PlayStation 4 system, and it blew pretty much everyone away. It won multiple Game of the Year awards, both industry recognised and content creator made. It created a lore as to why this man became an assassin, and it offered an Assassin's Creed experience that Assassin's Creed hadn't done for over 5 years, and still hasn't come 2022. It had a defined and expertly executed 3-act arc, simplified skill trees and upgrade paths, mechanics built to promote player autonomy, superb writing, acting and direction across the board, rewarding simple gameplay with a high skill ceiling. It had Nobu, my horse, and the list goes on. Ghost of Tsushima did the Assassin's Creed thing, but it did it to a level that Ubisoft have never been able to achieve, not even with the excellent Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. Sucker Punch took the formula, bettered it, then perfected it in one single release. No matter what else happens with Red, it is an open world RPG set in feudal Japan. It is going to be compared to Ghost of Tsushima no matter what. It has to be. They're the same style and setting of game. If Red isn't half as good as Ghost, it's going to go down in history as an abject failure.
Assassin's Creed. Codename Jade. Now we get a mobile title. Assassin's Creed has had many mobile games over the years. They've even had ports of DS titles to iOS so more people can play. They have varied in terms of style and focus, but none have ever really had much longevity. Some had a definitive endpoint, a perfectly good design choice, while others were open-ended live service options that became quite stale, lacking the innovation and staying power of games like Pokemon Go. Codename Jade seems to be a new option though. From the forward and subsequent PR packs, Jade is a full RPG entry for the ancient era, set in the 3rd century BC, just about having the timeline for the Hidden Ones make sense, with this release being set in China. That's about all we know on this one. How gameplay will work is unknown. Whether it is portrait or landscape is unknown. We have this trailer that's running in the background, so we have an idea of how it will look. We also know that it will be a make-your-own assassin scenario, which, for an Assassin's Creed purist such as myself, is sacrilege. In the historical settings, we're meant to experience the memories of the person's life that we're inhabiting. That's kind of tough to do when that person has just been created in the previous character creation screen. Other than that, I don't really have much to say, simply because we don't know anything more, except for the fact that it is coming soon. So we'll have hands-on impressions soon enough. Assassin's Creed Infinity.
Remember that live service Assassin's Creed game that was announced a couple of years ago? Yeah, that's the one. Assassin's Creed Infinity. It was meant to be a persistent Assassin's Creed experience, constantly updating, a la Destiny 2. Well, it's not a live service game anymore. In fact, I'm not sure that it ever was. When you look at what it was described as, what people translated that as, and what it actually is, the public and journalists on this occasion were way off base. Assassin's Creed Infinity is your Animus. Now, I doubt you've got this far into an Assassin's Creed video without knowing what an Animus is. But I met an Assassin's Creed fan the other week who didn't know who Altair was. So, just in case, the Animus is a device used to access genetic memory. A genetic memory was described in the original release as a passing of memories through genetic code via reproduction. This is how birds instinctively know when and where to migrate, despite having never done it before in their lives. The Animus offers clarity to those genetic memories. It allows you to experience specific moments in your genetic history, or vast swathes of an ancestor's life. It has evolved over time, and the current Animus can allow you to access genetic memories as long as you have a sample of that person's DNA. And it's totally portable. So Infinity is an Animus for you, the player. It is replacing the modern day sections in the games, and it will make you the modern day protagonist, accessing titles like Red and Hex from the Animus Hub. More experiences will be added to that hub over time, including older titles. To me, this sounds like Ubisoft are suddenly leaning hard into cloud gaming. Now, as long as they have stable servers and good distribution, I think this will be great. However, most big cloud gaming service providers only have services in 23 to 28 countries. And there are many more countries on the planet that play Assassin's Creed games than that. So I don't know how this hub will work for hardware like consoles or PC. Described as a hub to access all titles, I can't see it working well if it requires multiple hundreds of gigabytes of space to operate effectively. My bigger gripe, though, is the removal of the modern day segments. Any long-time fan of the game will know that the ancestors that we spend the majority of these games playing as are not the true protagonists of the series. They aren't the main characters. I mean, most have been dead for 500 to 2,500 years, so they can't be. It all started with Desmond, then the Initiate, then Layla, before Basim, the Sage of Loki, and his wife Angbroda stepped into that modern-day protagonist role at the end of Valhalla. Now, the best stories in this series have always had incredibly strong modern-day segments. When we haven't had a strong modern day, we've ended up with a rambling mess of a game. Just look at Odyssey or Syndicate. And one of those messes resulted in an entire series reboot. So there is concern in removing the modern day completely and putting the player as the protagonist. Why are we visiting these memories? What effect does this have upon the world? Is Loki a good guy or a bad guy? Are we going to have the answers to these questions and many more? With the player being the modern day protagonist and Assassin's Creed Infinity being this Animus hub? Are we actually going to be able to engage with what's happening in the past with no idea of what's happening in the present? These are very serious questions for long-time fans. These are storytelling stalwarts of the entire series. They are ingrained in its DNA, and they are required to tell a complete, whole, and cohesive story. And I personally feel it is a very serious undermining of the series story, removing the modern day. Now again, I would love to be proven wrong with these thoughts. It would make me incredibly happy to be proven wrong. But just to put some perspective on it, the last time that the player was the modern day protagonist, the series ended up getting rebooted.
Assassin's Creed. Netflix.
So this one confused me for a bit. We've known that a Netflix Assassin's Creed show has been coming for quite a while now. And throughout the presentation, Ubisoft have deepened that partnership by announcing that the Assassin's Creed mobile titles will be launching through Netflix games. But Ubisoft announced this particular Assassin's Creed show as if it were new. Well, that's because it is. You see, back in the pre-COVID days of 2018 or 2019, Ubisoft announced a Netflix anime series. What they announced during this forward was a Netflix live action show. Now currently, neither have much talent assigned. There's no scripts, no release dates, but both are apparently still in the works. So until we see more than this title card, I can't offer more judgment than, what the hell is taking so long? The future. Bright or bleak? With such a lack of evidence and information to work off for many of these announcements, objectively, it's hard to say which way the future is heading. Subjectively though, you can have many more thoughts based on historical actions, facts, and current affairs, practices, rumours and leaks. So from a subjective standpoint, I feel the future of Assassin's Creed is bleak. Mirage is one of the most concerning announcements. It's coming out in 2023, which is only 3 months away when I'm making this video. When you take that into consideration, and we have no gameplay to view, no hands-on experiences, even if it launches at the tail end of 2023, those concerns are still going to linger until release, which will then either just nullify or cement my thoughts. It's meant to be a return to form game, but the engine doesn't lend itself to that freedom that we had in the form era of the series. And it's already dropped platform support, not releasing on Stadia. So how long, if at all, will older consoles and Luna be supported after launch? And they are just concerns for the one game that was announced with some actual detail and is meant to release first out of this list. When I was writing this script, it felt like a chore finding positive things to say about each release. When I found those positives, they were easy to write about. But they weren't front and centre. And they weren't overly numerous. Instead, the negative aspects like the no modern day, the same Anvil engine and Jonathan Dumont were paraded on stage by Ubisoft as big positives. It was a completely tone-deaf presentation for their audience. And it's the simple, easy stuff like that Ubisoft keep getting wrong. Stupid decisions that other companies simply wouldn't entertain as an option, let alone make, that doesn't inspire me with confidence that they'll deliver on anything that they've promised. When you don't have confidence in a company making a product, due to their track record and current actions, you can't then have confidence in the end product of that company. For example, the last time Ubisoft released anything that felt like Assassin's Creed was the Hidden Ones DLC for Origins way back in 2018. Odyssey, released at the tail end of that year, wasn't an Assassin's Creed title at all in terms of timeline, design, and so much more. And all of the mythological stuff thereafter is a direct affront to the series setup. We then got Valhalla in 2020, where the main character shuns the Assassin Order, and even goes as far as to deride them in some free post-launch DLC. That DLC felt like a directed comment at fans of the series like me, and was really not appreciated. Then it was 3 years of more mythical stuff and seasonal events that have nothing to do with Assassin's Creed at all. So 4 years. 4 years of releases with Assassin's Creed on the box, and the contents not being Assassin's Creed. Now, some of them were Creed adjacent, but they weren't Assassin's Creed. If there is anything that I have learned about Ubisoft in the last 5 years, it is that, regardless of what they outwardly say, they will always double down on the options that bring more money into the company. and having less and less Assassin's Creed in Assassin's Creed seems to bring them a lot more money right now. So my personal outlook for the future of Assassin's Creed is bleak. This announcement feels like an eggs in one basket last ditch attempt to save the franchise. So, let's see if they can pull it off. And whilst we're waiting for that to happen, make sure to check out my Assassin's Creed ranking list video covering all of the mainline games up to Valhalla's release. Otherwise, your viewership is more than enough for me. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Doragon. These are my thoughts on the future of Assassin's Creed, and until next time, have a fantastic day, and take care.